Oh, is it not working? Oh, okay. So, hello. Um, as you could probably tell, I'm still quite new to live streaming. I've only ever done this a couple of times. When I'm either producing music or the when we passed 20,000 subscribers, and I did that massive Roger Ebert tier ranking video. So I'm still trying to work out the kinks of this sort of thing. I'm very much an amateur, but I thought originally I was going to do this for New Year's, and then things came up and the schedule kind of got delayed. But I wanted to make like another tier ranking video for one of my all-time favorite directors, David Lynch. And I thought this would be a really cool opportunity to be able to go through all the nooks and crannies of his filmography, at least to the best of my ability with the time I have available, to talk about to find, I suppose, a lot of the things I've missed out on, like short films or music videos and stuff like that. And it also gives me an opportunity to just ramble on about some of my favourite Lynch films anyway. So, yeah, I think without script, being quite a chilled out, informal setup, this could be hopefully an enjoyable experience. Uh, if you don't know what a tier ranking video is, if you're new to this sort of format, basically we're going to go through his entire filmography: short films, feature films, TV pilots, music videos, and internet short films. And we're going to rank them based on their quality or personal opinion, I suppose, as well as adding films into what we have here, a watch list, because I haven't been able to see everything he's directed yet. There's quite a few films that I've not seen by David Lynch that I couldn't find, or there's some nooks and crannies in his filmography that are not as accessible to to find. So yeah, we'll probably be adding a few things to the watch list, a few things to the rewatch list, things that I feel a bit rusty on, that I don't remember too well. But yeah, the ranking is going to be: S is the top tier, the cream of the crop, and the E tier, our lowest tier, is going to be for the stuff that really misses the mark, which I hope isn't too many films, but I think there's a couple in David Lynch's more digital oriented film work that just doesn't quite hit, you know. If you know his digital short films quite well, I think you might have a few ideas what films could be in this category, but we'll get there when we get there. Yeah, before we start, I'd like to say thank you if you're going to join, if you're going to watch. This could be quite a long stream. I don't plan on taking any breaks. We're going to finish when we finish. Feel free to go or come back whenever you want. In the video description, you can find my Letterboxd, Patreon, as well as the tips jar for Streamlabs, because yeah, any support always helps this channel stay afloat. I think YouTube super thanks are activated too, but this is just another option to support the channel. Watching alone also helps. So you know, any engagement, any conversation we have, I'm going to be checking through the chat messages and trying to respond to people as well. So enough waffling on. I think this will be a good time to get started. And we start off with Six Men Getting Sick, which is David Lynch's first short film. And you may also know it by Six Men Getting Sick Six Times. I always think this is a cool one. This is like an experimental animation of six vague human figures whose bodies are sort of being animated into form before blood and bile comes out of their organs and spews up. And it is repetitive. It is literally the same loop six times. But I believe it was also meant to be projected onto sculptures that he had made, which we don't really have that privilege of seeing when we watch it online, or if we have one of his many short film DVDs. So we don't get the full experience watching Six Men Getting Sick. I still think it's a really interesting curiosity. It's not a film I would widely recommend, but I think, yeah, this is a neat little curio. I'm going to place this in C tier. I think this early on in his career, you already get the sense that he's very much into quite nightmarish, unusual visuals. So, yeah, on to the next one. We have, I believe this is Absurd Encounter with Fear. So this is a rough one. This is early. This is like a student film, and it basically follows a man who stalks a woman in a field, unzips his flies, and starts pulling out flowers. And it's very clearly presented like a horror film. I think the premise alone is pretty unsettling. This sense that, you know, the impression of a potentially violent man following a woman into an empty open space. There's something very intimidating about it, but it's also very amateurish. This is very much Lynch at the start of discovering what can be done with a film, and you get a sense of there's some early traces of what Lynch will become. The strong sense of shadows, I suppose the sound design isn't quite typically Lynchian. It's this overblown score that he's probably sourced from some public domain, source, and that you get it's embryonic Lynch, isn't it? It's still an unsettling film, but it's very rough. I kind of dig how deteriorated the film stock looks. Whether that's intentional or not, I don't know. I'm gonna put this in D tier. This is another curiosity that, not the best of early Lynch, but you can see where he's coming from, what the type of filmmaker he would become. Sort of like career foreshadowing. Next, we have Fictitious Anacin Commercial. This is another one I think was a student film. This feels like he's just made this with some friends. It is amateurish, but it's also, I think you get a clearer sense of David Lynch's sense of humour, the sort of tonal absurdity that would reappear later on in his career. There's a lot of fixations on extreme close-ups of faces, which tell the story very much of this impossible headache being cured by this Anacin tablet, and it's all very offbeat. I kind of liked it. It's very, it's quite awkward, but it is also, you do get the traces of Lynch's humour that would come across later in his career. I kind of dig it. I don't think it's necessarily good. I think I'm going to give this a D tier, but this one could be worth checking out if you're interested to see the type of filmmaker he was before he became confident within his own footing as a filmmaker. So next we have The Alphabet, I think. Okay, we'll go to The Alphabet. I'm going through the IMDb page as well to make sure I get this right chronologically. And The Alphabet's a step ahead, but we'll go through The Alphabet first anyway. I think this is terrifying. This is Lynch finding the confidence that would eventually become like Eraserhead and stuff like that. It's a mix of animation, live action. It sort of has this deceptive innocence, like a lullaby that gradually transforms into just it's that sort of uncanny brand of horror David Lynch can do really well, where there's this discomfort and unease that we can't quite place our fingers on, where the animation sort of forms into these strange bodily forms, and then you have the eventual recital of the alphabet with his ex-wife Peggy Lynch on the bed in all of these just unusual positions. It feels like being cursed. You know that sort of eeriness sometimes you get from hearing old recordings of children's music. It is very much that sort of unease. I think this is pretty fucking great as a short film in terms of David Lynch canon. I am going to place this in A tier. If you want a short entry point into David Lynch and the sort of creepiness that he could deliver, The Alphabet is such a good entry point. So next we have Sailing with Bushnell Keeler, which is David Lynch considers this a home video. I think you could probably consider it a documentary of sorts. It's a short film he's spent with his friend Bushnell Keeler on a boat and they go sailing. But the interesting thing, I think, is that David Lynch also has a fascination for Bushnell's father, who was an artist and was the man who supposedly inspired David Lynch to pursue a career in the arts. This isn't really much more than like a slideshow of various shots on the boat, but there's also this like really just thick, textured, windy soundscape audio that accompanies it, that makes it just feel like there's something bigger than what we're seeing. I kind of dig it. It's only about 3 minutes long, and I think it's a really interesting glimpse into an origin story for David Lynch. This includes the man who inspired him to be the artist he currently is. I'm going to place this in C tier. So next we have The Grandmother. This is one I feel very rusty on. I haven't seen this in a very long time, but I remember thinking when I saw it, this feels like the prototype for what a Razorhead would be, tonally speaking. It's very much that abstract nightmarish tone that he has throughout Razorhead. I'm going to place this in rewatch because I don't feel right giving it a proper ranking when I haven't seen it in years, but I do remember enjoying it. Next we have The Amputee, and this is one I don't like. I just find this quite dull. I think there's not much particularly intriguing visually, other than we have an amputee who's writing letters, and this internal monologue accompanies us. I don't think this is a particularly interesting film. I think it's David Lynch finding his footing early on again, with this curiosity for people who fall between the cracks. I feel putting it in E tier is going to be too harsh, so I'm going to place it in D tier. You can skip The Amputee. It's not great, but if you're a diehard Lynch fan, you've probably seen it. Maybe, you know. Next we have Eraserhead, and this one of my all-time favorite films. I did a video on it years ago. This strange dystopic nightmare about parenthood and fatherhood. This is a terrifying film even by today's standards. There's so many fantastic images with the sort of the floating sperm, or the lady in the radiator singing in heaven, all these allusions to death and to the end of freedom. And it's a really pessimistic film about parenthood, if you view it about parenthood. Supposedly many interpretations follow this film, and they're all incorrect, according to David Lynch himself. So there's probably so many other ideas we can get from this too. Even if you're just watching it as like a visually distinctive horror film, it's always going to catch you off guard. Like the little chickens, cut them up like regular chickens. I've always loved the sequence of the actual Eraserhead creation, followed by that angry manager who shouts, "Okay, Paul." You know, this is fantastic. This is S tier Lynch. If you're okay with the surreal and you've not seen Eraserhead yet, it is just like the perfect amalgamation of his humor, of his nightmarish fantasies, of some of the explorations of the subconscious fears that would reappear later in his career. It's incredible, perfect, oops, near perfect film, should I say? Casey, I'm imagining it like the soundtrack to the horror sections of Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2's got a good soundtrack, hasn't it? Yeah. Like those desolate soundscapes, or like the certain sound effects you get with really emphasized reverb. I kind of get what you mean. Next, we have Eraserhead, and this is like maybe one of the great biopics. His second feature directorial film. You've got this beautiful, empathetic performance from John Hurt, Anthony Hopkins. This feels like this could have been quite a standard Hollywood fare, and it's not. There are traces of the Lynchian nightmare throughout this as well. Yeah, and it's a very empathetic film. David Lynch is not someone I've ever felt mocked outsiders, and the way he portrays Joseph Merrick with elegance and grace and kindness, it makes for just genuinely one of his best films. I'm gonna put this in S tier. That's where it sits for me. Next, a polarizing one, we have David Lynch's Dune. Poorly received. Even by today, people are mixed on it. I am a David Lynch Dune apologist. I actually really dig this. Been a little while since I've seen it, but I think I did a video on it a little while back, and I think you can kind of get the sense that I'm quite kind about this film. There's some great visual effects work. I like seeing Kyle MacLachlan take on, I think this was his first feature film, take on such like an iconic role like Paul Atreides. It is campy, but there's a lot, I think, to enjoy here as well. You've got this great Toto and Brian Eno film score. You get the sense that yes, David Lynch is fighting with the studios when adapting this, because Dune is sort of impossible to adapt into just 2 hours, as we've come to see with Denis Villeneuve's adaptation. It needs the time to breathe, and you get the sense there is a lot of rushing here, but there is also some just fantastic sequences that I feel like Lynch only could have done, like Alia dancing with the blade, or how grotesque the Baron looks. I mean, the Baron looks grotesque anyway in Denis Villeneuve's version, but here, I don't think the Baron looks grotesquely beautiful like in Denis Villeneuve's version. Here it just looks slimy and greasy, and it's like, I need a shower after seeing him. A lot of over performances and camp, but I can't hate Dune. I'm going to place this in C tier because I think there's a lot there to enjoy. Yes, Casey saying, Eraserhead, his most spiritual film according to Lynch. Haven't watched it in so long. There's the meme, isn't there, where he's in an interview and says, that's my most spiritual film. The interviewer asks him, can he elaborate on that? And we just get that blunt no. I love it. It's like, if you're new to David Lynch, you kind of have to suspend any assumptions you're going to get explanations, because you just won't. So next we have Blue Velvet, and I feel like if you're intimidated by the surreal and the unconscious and all the other abstract things that run around through David Lynch's filmography, Blue Velvet, I think, is a really good, strong introduction. Hi, Swedish Llama. Yeah, Blue Velvet, it has that focus on sexual violence that we would get in Wild at Heart. It has this very strange underlying something is amiss throughout the whole film. You get traces of the very strange, the inexplicable, but at its core, it's a psychological crime thriller that I think most people who enjoy a good film like this will see the benefits of Blue Velvet. It's incredible. You've got Cal MacLachlan comes more into a confident, kind of cocky, youthful, suave persona until that becomes dismantled because he's overstepped. He's bitten off more than he can chew. You get Isabella Rossellini's elegance and vulnerability. You get Dennis Hopper, just absolutely terrifying clown of a frightening, violent man. He is both like an exaggeration of and like a vulgar depiction of true masculine abuse, and it's frightening shit. I love Blue Velvet. It goes in S tier for me. I've seen it God knows how many times. I can watch it again and again. It's just fascinating, that one. Okay, so next one we have... Where's this one? This one is The Cowboy and the Frenchman. Goofy short film made for an anthology about the French, I think. And Harry Dean Stanton, pretty cool guy, has this sort of... Yeah, he just sort of plays Harry Dean Stanton, really, doesn't he? In this one, anyway. This is sort of David Lynch's goofier sense of humour, and I don't think it really lands. I'm going to put this in rewatch. It's been a very long time since I've seen it. But I remember very vaguely not gelling with it. Maybe other people might remember that one too. Next we have the Twin Peaks TV pilot, which I think's cool. I mean, supposedly it's not canon to the rest of the series, but I always thought this gets a good balance between that crime thriller fascination that I've come to love with David Lynch, as well as the lingering sense that something is amiss underlying the whole mystery. There's some really fantastic moments in this. B tier. Whenever I rewatch Twin Peaks, I go to the beginning. I start with the pilot episode. I have a fondness for that one. So next we have Wild at Heart, and this is a fucking cool film. This is Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage, but there's this sort of really earnest nature to him. The expression of his individualism, the obsessive romance that is just constantly erotic, that is almost like a sensory overload. Laura Dern has this just youthful curiosity and loyalty, but she's not a simple young being either. I've always enjoyed the bond you get with David Lynch and Laura Dern, because she gets to have some very nuanced roles when other filmmakers may just give her something like, in the hands of another director, her character could be quite two-dimensional and superficial, airheaded, and it's not here. This is a really kind but violent and vulgar and terrifying film. I love it. It's also possibly a remake of The Wizard of Oz. It's fabulous. It's campy. It's very much embracing that rocker chic that David Lynch is very keen on. Not my favourite of his features, but yeah, it's an A tier for me. I'm going to place it there. Obsession. This is what was this? This is a Calvin Klein advert. This was all right. This is kind of cool. I think when you see most of David Lynch's adverts, there's a few that just feel very corporate, but this, you kind of get the sense he had some creative control in it. I wouldn't say rush to watch it. It's not the most memorable. It's just kind of neat. Industrial Symphony No. 1. I've not seen this. I've been meaning to watch this for a while, so it's going onto the watch list. But It sounds like it's right up my street. It sounds like it's an unconventional concert film of sorts. Opium, another one of his adverts for oh fuck, I never pronounce it properly. Yves Saint Laurent. Hopefully, I've pronounced that right. Yeah, this one's kind of cool. A lot of sultry, luxurious golden texture, and yeah, you get the sense that it's Lynch being romantic. That you kind of get that sense in some of his stories, like Wild at Heart or Twin Peaks, and it's this almost exaggeration of the melodramatic. You know, it might be semi-ironic, but it's a vibe in itself. It's like, you know, it's a comfort. I if surely, you know, if you know what I mean, if you've seen enough David Lynch, that there's this sense of maybe ironic romanticism, of sentimentality that's like just sugary enough, you know, almost like inspired by telenovelas and soap dramas. I kind of dig it when David Lynch does it. This goes into C tier for me. Next we have Twin Peaks, season 1 and 2. Season 1, just top tier television, classic episode after classic episode, strange brand of humour, very much delves into the surreal. Season 2 is where it sort of gets rockier. I believe David Lynch had less control. Oh, hello, Jared. Yes, just a shout out to Jared in the chat. We did a podcast recently. I'll probably share that on the community tab when it goes public. But yes, thank you for joining. Yeah, so Twin Peaks season 2 is a bit of a slump. I don't think it's dreadful. I think that's too harsh to describe it like that. You can still get a lot of enjoyment out of the offbeat directions and storylines in season 2. And there's still some classic Lynchian moments, like the finale, where we will get to finally enter the Black Lodge for good, and it becomes this labyrinthine horror show, you know. Yeah, Twin Peaks is for me a classic comfort watch. I will probably watch this maybe once every few years, you know. Season 2 you got to be patient with, but the weakest parts of season 2 are outweighed by the strengths of the overall experience. I'm going to put this in A tier. It's fantastic television, and anyone who likes David Lynch needs to see Twin Peaks. Next, we have Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, the film accompaniment and possibly origin story, but you know, I actually always felt like this film raises more questions than it answers. There's so much misdirection in this thing. There's so many glimpses into storylines that set up later storylines in the series, and yet you also get a lot of digressions that you'll never find answers to. But also this feels like David Lynch. There's sequences in this, like with the non-verbal woman who speaks through dance and symbols that she wears. There's a sequence where it almost feels like David Lynch is trying to explain to us how we need to process his films on an unconscious, subconscious level, and it doesn't help with understanding the rest of his films. But it's such a fascinating puzzle. You need to see Fire Walk With Me after watching Twin Peaks. This is just fantastic cinema, and I wish it was better received on release, but I'm so glad that now people see the worth of it. It is probably one of his best films. Casey says David Lynch could make commercials for the rest of his career and it makes sense. Yeah, definitely. He is a real stylist. A lot of his adverts are so memorable. There's one advert we're going to get into quite soon. I see it here now, that I think is absolutely dreck. But that's not a comment so much on David Lynch. I don't think he gets much freedom in the advert that I have in mind. But yes, the rest of his adverts, fantastic usually, yeah. What's this one? Let me open up my tab. On the Air. I haven't seen this. I know of it. So it goes into the watch list. But next we have Fort Gang, A Real Indication. This might be one of his first music videos. And this is a collaborative thing he did with Angelo Badalamenti. Fort Gang, I think, was their band together. And this is groovy. This is really cool, groovy, a bit tongue-in-cheek, visually like an industrial collage. But I think you do get the sense that there's a lot of fun going on here too. Like Angelo Badalamenti is just completely going off the wall, and yeah, this is a cool music video. I would recommend this quite easily if you've never seen A Real Indication by Fort Gang. Check it out. This is neat stuff. B tier for me. Hotel Room. I haven't seen this. I've been meaning to. Yeah, I can't comment on it. And next we have the advert I don't like. I think it's pronounced Barilla. Could be Barilla. Cafe. And I think this advert is really creepy in the ways that weren't intentional back then. It stars Gerard Depardieu, who nurtures, I suppose, nurses a young girl with a pasta dish because she fell and scraped her knee. And then towards the end, a beautiful woman has scraped her knee too. And he rushes to infantilize and nurse her with romantic gestures or maybe more pasta. It's a shitty advert. It doesn't feel like David Lynch had any creative control here. And I think as we've come to know Gerard Depardieu now, yeah, it's aged like milk. It comes across as especially creepy, knowing the rape allegations and stuff that surround this guy. His own statement about his first act of sexual assault when he was a teenager. He's a creepy fucker. I don't like Gerard Depardieu. He sours almost everything he's in. This is E tier. Skip this one. Save yourself the headache. It's David Lynch directed, but he got no creative control here. There's nothing unique about it. It feels so corporate and shitty. Just skip it. Next we have Adidas The Wall, and this feels like a Lynchian short film. This is fucking cool stuff. Its special effects are a bit dated, but I think you kind of come to expect that from a lot of David Lynch. This has this strange montage from inside of a runner's mouth as he's hitting the metaphoric wall. You know, that whole sense of pure exhaustion where you can't keep running after you've ran for so long. And yeah, this makes me want to go out and buy a pair of Adidas shoes. This is such a strange, stylish, slick, just fucking cool video. I am actually really tempted to put this in A tier. This is like one of his best adverts. If you've not seen The Wall, you have to see it. Yeah, it's only about a minute long, and it gets unhinged, and yet comes back to the promotional side of things. It's just so concise. It's just wonderful. Next we have Georgia Coffee, which is a series of adverts featuring Agent Coop and familiar faces from Twin Peaks. This is a series of Japanese adverts for a brand of coffee. I think iced coffee, although some of it I think comes in hot as well. This is just fun. This is just funny. It's 30-second shorts for a mystery to find a Japanese woman. And yeah, it's a bit strange at first, the speed that Carl MacLachlan's having to get his lines out. But this is fun. This is a self-contained Twin Peaks-esque mystery full of humour, and I think a kind of irony as well, because it's so strange that all of these wonderful Twin Peaks characters who we've come to love are all are just conveniently holding the beverage. Oh, I love this. This was so silly and funny, and just If you've never seen the Georgia coffee adverts, you've got to. This is good David Lynch advertising. I wanted to try this coffee afterwards. So this is just fun shit. You know, you've got to see this one. Next we have Premonition Following an Evil Deed. And this is a freaky little short. Okay, so Casey says, I love the show. Okay, about Twin Peaks. I love the show, but I always felt Fire Walk With Me is so much more interesting because of how creepy it is and for how bad you feel about Laura Palmer. Yeah, like, you get... Like, I love the show as well, and I don't think the show dehumanizes Laura Palmer, but it's wonderful to get this sense of her when she was alive as well. She was a troubled young thing, definitely. I find the film incredible. But back to Premonition Following an Evil Deed. This is a creepy little short. This is less than a minute long, or just about a minute long. To celebrate the centenary of the Lumiere brothers, David Lynch created this little short, I think, for an anthology film, and you don't really get... I don't know if you would call it a story, but you get the sense that something has gone very wrong, maybe by the implication of evil deed in the title, but the arrival of a police officer at a family's door and then taking off his cap, you know there's been a murder, and whether it'll ever be solved or not is, I think, partly what chills me with this. And then, yeah, you get the naked woman in the experimentation tank. Sort of have to wonder the connection between the two. But this film really freaks me out. Just a wonderful little short. I would say if you're interested in Lynchian shorts, you need to see this one. It's an A tier for me. Next we have a music video from Japan called Longing. This was directed by David Lynch. I think you get the sense quite early on it's a Lynchian video. There's this sense, the way he does these sort of digital montage things where he superimposes eyes onto shadows and faces and stuff throughout the video. It's interesting visually, but I don't think it's all that memorable. And then the song itself is just this spoken word poem that I can see why David Lynch was drawn to it. It's a similar ethereal, similarly ethereal quality to it that you get with like Angela Badalamenti or Julie Cruz's music. But the poem itself, I don't think is particularly memorable either. This is a D tier one for me. You can skip this one if you want. Die-hard Lynch fans may find something to enjoy there as a curiosity. Next we have Lost Highway. And this is one I love to pieces. I didn't always love Lost Highway, but I think the more I've watched it, the more it sat with me. That industrial Americana, the 90s mix of Trent Reznor and Marilyn Manson, the shifting between identities, this sort of strange mystery that unfolds in between. There's some really terrifying sequences in this thing, like the man with no name, the phone call early on in the film, and he answers the phone. It's so frightening, and I have done a video on this, and even then I can't say the video explains anything here. It's something that feels like a puzzle that can never be solved, you know? I am torn between S tier and A tier. I'm going to put this in A tier because it's not the Lynch film I always return to. But yes, it's definitely one of his best. Next we have Parisian People. This is a cigarette advert. I'm not really a smoker. I've never smoked, but David Lynch he was a smoker. I don't know if he still is, you know. Just because of his recent health scares, you know. Maybe more on that later, if you don't know. But now, Parisian People, this is a strange little advert, and I love it. This is one of his best ones. It sort of plays in reverse. rain falls back into the sky. There's the sparks and the flashes and distorted audio soundscapes. This feels like something you might get from Twin Peaks: The Return. Even with like the strange, decrepit garage building where they saw these two figures kind of walk in and out of. It's a very unusual thing, and I love it to pieces. I am actually really. I think this is going to go into S tier for me. This is one of his best adverts, kind of one of his best short films. It is Lynch through and through. Yeah, see Parisian People if you've not seen it yet. Fabulous thing. Next we have The Straight Story, and this is I think this is one of Lynch's best, if not possibly his best film. And it's in this sort of ironic situation where it feels both like Lynch at his purest and also not typically Lynchian at all, but you still get the sense that he's very interested in the subconscious repressed emotions of longing, of, I suppose, unity. You get these sort of character dynamics within Twin Peaks and within Blue Velvet, and in The Straight Story it feels like he's brought it to his most grounded, and yet there's these long stretches of contemplative Americana and suburbia that is just like, that is so truly Lynchian. You know, his fascination with America as a facade, the underlying emotions of the American postcard that we are so familiar with, the red barns and the white picket fences. The Straight Story is just, this is one of Lynch's best. I'm putting it in S tier. If you need a palate cleanser from all of the strange, unusual, ethereal textures of David Lynch, The Straight Story is just such a comfort. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful film. Next we have, this is Mulholland Drive as the TV pilot, and I've never seen this. I knew it was a failed TV pilot initially, or a rejected TV pilot, should I say. And then he recreated it into the feature film we all love today. But no, I've never seen the TV pilot, so I'm going to put that on the watch list. Next we have Blue Bob, Thank You Judge. And this is just fab. I love this. I mean, if you don't know what Blue Bob is, David Lynch has had numerous musical projects, and Blue Bob was one of his earlier ones, which was like sort of bluesy, sort of semi-spoken word, kind of grubby, lo-fi, ironic on a way, bluesy music. And Thank You Judge is one of the music videos, and this is hilarious to me. This feels like Lynchian shit posting. It's surprisingly catchy. The vocalist, I can't remember the singer of Blue Bob's name, but he's basically running off all the things he's lost in a vicious divorce. A divorce from Naomi Watts, who's in the music video. And it's shot like it's made like a home video almost. It's really DIY music. It's a real DIY music video. And there's just some lines in this that I just think are so silly and funny. Like, he loses his stash of beer, followed by his fishing gear. And then you get Blue Bob, I think it's David Lynch in this weird rubber mask, who's sort of teasing him and mocking him for all the things he's lost. Yeah, this is just funny stuff. I find it funny. I don't know if everyone else will. It feels a bit like a Tim and Eric skit before Tim and Eric became a thing. I kind of really dig this. I'm putting it in B tier. I don't know if people go out of their way to watch Thank You Judge, I don't know if you're going to feel the same way as I am. I thought it was really fun, really silly. This guy just can't catch a break. I think it's putting all the blame on his ex-wife. And everything he's lost in a divorce feels sort of tinged with a slight misogyny, really. But I think it's done with enough irony that you're like, you know what? No, this guy's kind of a fucking loser anyway. Yeah, I dig it. I dig Blue Bob. This is fun, you know. Next we have, oh god, this is one I actually couldn't find. Un matin, pas-tu dans les mondes? Let me try that again. Un matin, pas-tu dans le monde? I haven't seen this. I couldn't find it, so it sits on the watch list until I can get round to seeing it. Next, we have another advert for PlayStation 2, the third place. This is, I think, only about a minute long, and this is just such a cool advert. This feels like millennial Eraserhead. Yeah, I don't know how really else to describe this. A Jack Nance-esque character goes down some dark corridors and finds figures sat on a sofa, and they seem to welcome him to the third place, whatever the third place may be. Maybe it's the place we go to on a subconscious level when we become truly immersed in a video game. The fact this is a PlayStation 2 advert, it's like, but with very little ties to video games. It reminds me a bit like that strange Chris Cunningham advert for PlayStation as well, with the Scottish woman with a strange shaped head. Yeah, this is a cool advert. Out of context, with context, whatever context you get, it makes no sense. It's delightful. It's Lynch being kind of silly. I love it. It's 80th for me. I'm actually a bit surprised how many of the adverts are getting quite high up here. Jared says, "You're going so deep on this. I love it. Thank you. I wanted to make sure I covered all my bases. I've tried to watch as many of these before doing this tier ranking as well. There's not many I've managed to rewatch or catch up with. Not many I've managed to avoid catching up with, but there's a few later on that I've unfortunately not been able to see. But yeah, hopefully this is quite an authoritative tier ranking. So next we're on to Mulholland Drive, one of my all-time favourites, instant S tier. And I think that Mulholland Drive is just maybe Lynch at one of his most perfect endeavours. It feels like a criticism of the Hollywood system he had become maybe an outsider to. I feel like there's definitely allusions to the open secrets that floated around Hollywood for decades before the Me Too movement arrived. It feels also like one of the great sapphic thrillers. It feels like it could have so easily have been a sort of longing, lesbian tinted thriller viewed through a male gaze. And I feel like David Lynch is actually really respectful in how this sense of emotional and romantic dependency develops within his film. It doesn't feel like he's ever portrayed any moment of it for titillation. And even when Mulholland Drive does become sexually graphic, I think there's like two scenes. It doesn't feel like it's for titillation. It feels like genuine chemistry. Naomi Watts maybe gives one of her best performances here. Yeah, and this thing has so many interpretations as well. Like, I don't feel like any of them sort of lose steam. I've never felt like I've come close to being able to uncover what I feel like it means. It always feels like I get close to it and then it pulls me away. and yet I'm always drawn back to this strange experience that Mulholland Drive is. I think there's a lot there about our wants, our aspirations, and how they can be dashed, and the illusion we build around ourselves in the hopes of achieving these aspirations. It feels like the perfect sort of semi anti Hollywood sort of satire thriller film. It sort of covers all its bases. I mean, this for me, this is like one of Lynch's best. I would say if you're new to David Lynch, don't start here. I would say prep yourself for Blue Velvet, maybe Eraserhead, and then get to Mulholland Drive. I think it requires a little bit of prep, but also I know this was like one of his big mainstream crossover successes, right? I mean, this was the film he got Oscar nominated for initially. You know, I'm rambling now, but for me, Mulholland Drive, it's so close to my heart. I love this film so much. Eraserhead Stories. This is a David Lynch directed documentary about his experience on Eraserhead, and I've not seen it. I'll put it on my watch list. It might be on my old DVD of it, but I've always been wanting to upgrade my copy of Eraserhead to the Criterion Blu-ray, so I'm sort of hoping it's on there as well. Yeah, Eraserhead Stories. I'll get around to seeing it eventually. Yes, yeah, Jared says we did Mulholland Drive on the pod last year, and it's pretty endlessly discussable. Yes, I remember once I rewatched it once for film school. We got shown it in class, and I don't think anyone else enjoyed it. Not many anyway, but it brought up such an interesting discussion with all of these different theories, even with people who didn't enjoy the film. They had their own ideas about what they had just experienced. Was it a film about like a repressed romance, about a crush that went nowhere, about a dying career? Is it about something so much more? Is something so many different ideas? I believe there's a website, might be a fan-made website that collects all of the theories for Mulholland Drive, and it's just such a rabbit hole. Yeah, Casey says I keep meaning to rewatch Mulholland Drive now. I'm sober, not trying to sorry, and not trying to watch it high or wasted. Yeah, I mean, I, I suppose I'm quite vanilla. I've been quite straight edge forever, really. And even Mulholland Drive to me, I find can be quite a sensory overload. It's like I imagine it must feel even more disorienting if you're taking a certain substance or if you've drunk quite a lot. And I think one of the magical things about David Lynch is if you want this sort of sense of disorientation, his films usually deliver, you know? Next we have... Oh, yes, Jared says again, the similarities between Mulholland Drive and Dr. Caligari are fun too. I'm going to have to rewatch Mulholland Drive and refresh myself on that. But I don't doubt you. Next, I am going to get into... Okay, so this is Pierre and Sonny Jim. If you've seen Twin Peaks: The Return, Sonny Jim's probably going to sound familiar. I think one of the things you find out when you watch a lot of David Lynch's more obscure short films is how he's almost like testing the waters for certain ideas that will become more apparent later in his works. But Pierre and Sonny Jim feels like another example of his shit posting. This is from 2001. I believe this is like one of his digital shorts that he did for his website. And it's literally you can see from the picture, it's two inflated rubber gloves. And it sounds like they're bickering or they're deflating or something. But the audio is so low quality. It's like a really abrasive, squeaking, almost like a screaming noise, like a shriek. and it feels so irritating to listen to. It feels, I would buy into this being intentionally irritating, that he made this almost like it's meant to be annoying. Whether that's a meritable reason to create something like this, I suppose, will be down to the viewer, but eventually the irritation kind of became unease for me. Like when the deflation sort of sounds like screaming eventually, at least this is how I felt, it sort of becomes a really unnerving and also kind of funny, like nonsensical thing. I don't think there's much thought behind something like this. I could be wrong. David Lynch may have had a full on. I don't believe he's necessarily someone who makes something without a creative intention, but I feel like this is like just filmed any old shit, and it becomes, for me, it becomes a sort of semi funny, genuinely irritating, gradually unsettling little film that kind of goes nowhere. I'm putting it in C tier because I find it so curious and interesting, but it genuinely, for anyone else, I think they would probably put it in E tier. They'll probably put it in E tier, and I think it's going to just piss off a lot of viewers. But for me, C tier. Next we have Head with Hammer, which is less than a minute long. I think it's like 30 seconds. It's this mannequin doll and this strange sort of contraption behind him that slowly taps him in the head with a hammer. And that's sort of it. And, you know, initially I didn't think much of this, but as you dive more into the stuff that David Lynch was making outside of his feature films, you realise David Lynch was like, he's a really handsy, crafty guy. He makes a lot of artistic, like he's a painter, he's a sculptor, but he's also a handyman, and he makes a lot of things like lamps and contraptions, and we'll get into that later on because there's a series of videos that he does. But right now, this feels like it's an early example brought to a very short film, a demonstration of some strange artistic creation he's made. This is just a thing, this strange, elaborate thing that gently taps a hammer. I think the more I think about it, the more I like it, the more I find it kind of amusing. That it's David Lynch just with a curiosity, with a slight enthusiasm for, hey, I made this thing, and now you can see this thing I've made. I mean, at this stage in his filmography, we don't get to see all the strange little the craftsmanships and the strange little hobbyist things he's made, and this feels like an early example of a hobbyist creation he's made. I dig it. Head with Hammer gets a C tier for me. People might find it pointless, maybe it is, but I kind of find it wholesome that David Lynch, in his free time for fun, makes strange little creations that only he and maybe his family sees, and it's just, yeah, I kind of dig it. Next we have Darkened Room, and this is one I've always had a soft spot for. It starts out like David Lynch explaining to us that for his website, he had a fan who was doing these video blogs about the sights that she saw from her room in Japan. And then eventually Darkened Room starts, and it shows us this fan who shows us the sights outside her room. She then gives us some banana facts and then tells us that her roommate next door is crying and we shouldn't look. And that's when we get into the genuinely uneasy qualities of this film, that we don't know why this woman's crying. She's there, she's crying for help, and then a roommate comes in, who we haven't met before, and sort of berates her. And I feel like this feels like something you'd expect as like a digression within Inland Empire, you know? there's even the hole in the fabric in the slip dress of one of the roommates that feels like a sequence that would become more developed in Inland Empire 2. And I don't know why. It's hard to place my finger on why I find Darkened Rooms so uneasy. Because there's very little that happens in it as well. It for so minimal creation, this sort of back and forth between two roommates that feels like a berating of one while the other sits quietly just taking it. I'm going to put this in B tier. This feels really intriguing to me. I know not everyone feels the same way. When you look at the IMDb score, it's got 5.5. I feel like none. If you're not too keen on these short films that David Lynch does, where it feels even more unconventional than his features, I can see why you wouldn't like Darkened Room. But for me, it's just, for so little needed to make something so incredibly uneasy. Oh, hi Sammy. No worries if you're late. You start whenever you start. This is going to stay on the channel anyway, so if you ever feel like starting from the beginning or whatever, no worries. We're just taking it easy. Nothing to... I'm just going off the cuff. I've got no script. A lot of ums and ahs in between my my views on these films. I hope it's a fun, gentle, casual experience doing this. Jared says, have to get back to work. Great stuff. Thank you, Jared, for joining us anyway. You know, it was nice doing your podcast the other day. And I hope that maybe at some point you get the opportunity to watch the rest of this as well. But no worries otherwise. Next we have Rabbits. I love Rabbits. This is like... So when you look at like David Lynch's early attempts at TV pilots, especially the ones that didn't go anywhere, sitcoms and soaps seem to be a source of inspiration. And with Rabbits, you kind of get that, but completely subverted. Like we recognise the conventions of the sitcom in Rabbits. You know, the fixed camera, the setting. Some of the dialogue sort of feels like sitcom hokiness, but eventually you do get the sense something is amiss. And there's a lot there. There's some very strange, questionable choices of dialogue. And it gradually becomes quite nightmarish in this quiet way. You get a lot of rabbits in Inland Empire as well, but it is a self-contained short. This is pretty cool shit, you know. I'm gonna place it in A tier. Yeah, I mean, if you love David Lynch and you're very curious about his unconventional digital shorts, Rabbits is where to be. Definitely. Next we have Dumbland, and I've always had a soft spot for this. This is so fucking stupid. This is David Lynch's early flash animated shorts that he animated himself, and in a way you can kind of tell it's very crude, it's very crass. There's a brand of humour here that feels like it sort of goes nowhere, but it's also like it's sort of that, how do you explain it? That sort of offbeat, nonsensical humour that you kind of see crop up in his other films. Dumbland is... I can't even remember how many episodes it is, but they're only a few minutes long. I think the whole thing's like barely 40 minutes. It has a lot of his fascination in there for things that have no explanation. I think he does all the voices himself, which becomes a bit more of a common thread within later short films too. You get the sense of his curiosity for ants, which we're going to get into later on. This feels like Lynch just having fun with it. It feels like a foreshadowing of some of his later short films. I really dig Dumbland, but I also get other people won't. it is really rough around the edges. I'm going to put it in B tier because I do have a fondness for it, even if I'm in the minority here. I remember showing it to friends back when I was in college, and no one else liked it but me. So maybe other people, maybe I might find my weirdos here who might think, oh yes, I love Dumland too, you know. Next we have the Disc of Sorrow is installed. This feels more like a video blog than a short film. David Lynch gives us a poem about the birds on the ground and the bugs in the sky, I believe. And the Disc of Sorrow needs to be installed to restore balance. And so he installs this giant blue record-like disc onto a bird feeder. And yeah, that's sort of it. I thought this was quite earnest, you know. It doesn't feel like the strangest thing that Lynch has done. It feels like he's giving us a recital of a poem he's written, and then he's just sort of modifying a bird feeder. I can't dislike it. It's just kind of blunt. It's quite simple. It may mean something else. Do we really believe that he restores the balance of all existence with this blue record? Is it something more than that? I can't say. I think it's an interesting little curiosity. I'm going to put it in C tier. I don't dislike it. Coyote. This is another one of his digital shorts that feels like I probably shouldn't enjoy it as much as I do. You know, it's a real mood piece. It's like low-res digital image of a living room that could have been a still image for the majority of it. And then gradually it's interrupted by a dog, maybe a coyote. But if are coyotes that small? I'm not sure. And then you get the sense in the sound design that something's happening really, really nasty off camera. I find it so unnerving. I'm probably in the minority with this one too, but I kind of dig it. It's one of these minimalist digital shorts that really requires very little to instill the fear of the uncanny on us. It feels like maybe it's quite repetitive, doesn't need to be as long as it is, maybe. Or maybe it does. I mean, I think part of the unease is expecting something to happen and then gradually being disappointed that something doesn't happen, only for something to eventually happen. I kind of dig it. Yeah, Coyote goes into C tier for me. Feel free to disagree with me on that. Maybe I'm being too kind with it. I don't really use IMDb that much, but here I've got the tab open and people have given it a 3.8. So there's a lot of people who don't like Coyote. I don't blame you. I don't blame people for that, you know. Casey says, I'm realising how little Lynch I've actually seen. Yeah. I think the majority of his filmography are these weird digital shorts he did in the noughties, you know. His website used to be a subscription-based thing where people would pay and he would eventually make a collection of shorts, I think maybe on a monthly basis, which is kind of incredible, to be honest, when we think about now how popular YouTube is, and that David Lynch was doing this sort of thing back in like 2001, you know. He was ahead of his time. And even now, his YouTube channel, it's pretty active. You know, even with his current health scares, that very concerning news. If you're not in the know, David Lynch, I believe, is if I can get my words out properly, David Lynch, I believe, is he's on an oxygen tank and has been restricted to his own home now. I think he's in really bad health nowadays. Sadly, I think the years of smoking have caught up to him. If you don't mind me checking, I'll find a news source for this. Type it into my phone. David Lynch, health problems. So yeah, The Independent. Um, okay, so The Guardian said in August, David Lynch says he is not retiring after revealing he is too ill to direct films in person, which implied, optimistically, maybe he could direct from the comfort of his own home. You know, maybe we'd get more short films from him. But then, I think most recently, okay, ladies and gentlemen, yes, I have emphysema from many years of smoking. I have to say that I enjoyed smoking very much, and I do love tobacco. The smell of it, lighting cigarettes on fire, smoking them. But there is a price to pay for this enjoyment, and the price for me is emphysema. So he has got this condition now. But I think since August, they've actually worsened. Okay, so give us a second. Um, okay, so The Independent says director David Lynch has said that he now needs a supply of oxygen and can only walk short distances after being diagnosed. Okay, so this is still from November, but he says he's not completely retired. But it's just disheartening, to hear how poor his health is now. Devastating, and it's probably why the content he would put out on his channel, the short films he would do, that's kind of, we're going to get into those eventually too, but it's kind of minimized his output towards this unique brand of short film he's been doing most recently. We will get into that later. I'm getting way ahead of myself. We're still around about where's the page? We're still around about the early 2000s with his filmography here. We're in 2002 territory. So live, chili beans. We're gonna work our way through it. Next we have Factory Mask, which this is a pretty uneventful little short, but I don't dislike it. It's one of his digital animations. It's a still image of a factory that he's kind of minimally animated to bring in steam, and then this slight movement from an actor that feels like from a 90s FMV point and click video game. I kind of like this as an aesthetic piece, but it's nothing too eventful. It's not particularly memorable. I don't dislike it. I'm going to put it in D tier. I mean, if you're a real die-hard Lynch fan, Factory Mask is, I think, just about a minute long. You can find it on YouTube. It's okay for what it is. He does quite a lot of these minimally animated digital animations. We're going to get into those later on. And it feels sort of like the start of that, Next we have Dead Mouse with Ants. Don't like this one. This one made me feel really gross. Seeing all of these little ants come out of a dead mouse, the little holes within its corpse, and it's like, I didn't need to see this one, to be honest. Anyone with that phobia, I think is it called trypophobia, where you're scared of or made uneasy by the sight of little holes close together. This is a frightening little thing that I don't like one bit, and I can't recommend it. I think what David Lynch is probably getting at with here is a visual remark on mortality, on decomposition. These are things we do get within Twin Peaks, and yet I just felt really gross watching this. I don't think I needed to see this. I don't really think many other people need to see it. It really is what it says on the tin. Ants, dead mouse, E tier. You can skip it if you want to. It's Yeah, Casey says Lynch unfortunately came from that era of Americans still smoking, and as a former smoker, I still pine for a cigarette when I think about it. Yeah, I can understand that. He's from, when you think about how cigarettes in like the 50s and 60s would be presented with health benefits, they didn't know how damaging it was back then. And I think, if you enjoy cigarettes like David Lynch does, you're gonna have them. People find them comforting. It's never been something I've done myself, so I can't fully relate, but I can understand on a level that it's like, it's for me, I get very snacky, and for me, snacks are kind of my vice. I know it's not quite the same, but in a way, if you were to substitute cigarettes for snacks, I'd be like, yes, I totally get it. I love snacks. It's like, so in a very superficial comparison, I suppose, I can understand on a level why David Lynch has been so keen on his cigarettes. Yeah, Dead Mouse and Ants sounds like a 90s industrial metal video, definitely. It feels like something you'd maybe, title-wise, get from something like Godflesh, Or Justin K. Broadwick, a legend of industrial metal. Next we have, what's the next one? What is this one? This is The Pig Walks, another one of his digital animation shorts. Strange mutated pig-esque creation walk cycle as it moves from left to right from a corridor. It's really simple. I kind of dig it for how, I suppose, crude it looks, but also how gross and gnarly. And what's that ARG? There's an ARG, Happy Meat Families, is that what it's called? Happy Meat Farm. It reminds me of that. Anyone who knows what I mean, please mention it in the comments, because it sort of vaguely reminds me of that. And this was from 2002. I'm going to place this in D. I think this is kind of just a neat little thing. It's nothing profound. At least my impression, it's an experimental walk cycle animation, but a really cool visual to it. Next we have Bees, or is it called Wall of Bees? Ball of Bees? I haven't seen this. It's on my watch list. I put it on my YouTube to watch later. I'll get around to it eventually. Next we have Laura Palmer, which isn't a Twin Peaks film. It's a short, experimental, still image of Laura Palmer, Sheryl Lee Ralph. Text accompanies the image as it strobes. I think it says something like, it's like rhetorical questions about what she can see and what she can hear. And it's not my favourite. It's kind of forgettable. But I also can't hate it, because you can get the impression that David Lynch has just always been really keen and curious about Laura Palmer as a character. I totally get it. Iconic character, incredibly complex character. I totally understand why someone would want to continue to dedicate their time to this character. I think it's a really earnest little thing, even though it's quite mundane to watch. I can't hate it, but you can skip it. It's a D tier for me. Next we have Lamp. And as I was talking about earlier with David Lynch as a handyman, as a creative craftsperson, as a sculptor, Lamp is an example of his sculpting. This is another earnest video of David Lynch saying, look, here's what I've created. But Lamp is actually more exhaustive, because he takes us through the whole process of making this lamp. This is one of the few times he actually has done this, where he shows us how he makes the texture the way he does, the final product. It's a curious little video diary, really, more than a short film. And I think the time we spend with David Lynch in these moments, he's just a very charming, down to earth, very engaging person. I'm going to put this in C tier. I couldn't recommend it easily just because I don't think everyone's going to be as interested in the creation of a lamp, you know. But I think anything where we get to spend time with David Lynch as a person, he's a very personable, open, intimate individual. I think it's just fascinating, you know. Next we have intervalometer experiments. Yeah, I'm not too keen on this. I get what's going on here. These are sort of like experimental time lapse shorts where Lynch is sort of trying to create some more uncanny visual effects through post production and editing work. You can kind of see these sort of effects appear in later short films, as well as the strange textures that they become in like Twin Peaks: The Return or Inland Empire, you know. It's a curious little thing. It's not the most interesting thing to watch, but it's very much a filmmaker expressing his own, I suppose, the boundaries of what he can do with texture, with time lapse, with editing effects. I'll put it in D tier. I can admire it, you know. Next we have Blue Bob Egg. Now, this isn't a Blue Bob music video. This is like less than a minute long. And it's Blue Bob, the character Blue Bob from the musical side project, being arrested by the police. And he's screaming, this is bullshit. Now, I kind of like this. This is a weird throwaway little short that feels like something from Adult Swim or a Harmony Korine project, you know? This feels like it could be like something you'd expect to find through maybe like late night scrolling through YouTube at 3 a.m, you know? It's a really weird little throwaway thing without any context, and I have to wonder, is it staged? Is it real? I'm not sure. Not completely sure. It's probably staged, but it still feels like so real and DIY. It's almost like, yeah, there's not much to say about it. It's Blue Bob getting arrested. It's a throwaway little short that I actually find more fascinating the more I think about it. I'm going to put it in C tier. People might disagree with me. People might think it's a non-memorable thing, something to throw away. You know, I don't know. I just really dig it. Next, we have Inland Empire, and out of his remaining works, depending on how you view Twin Peaks: The Return, this could be his last feature-length film. I think Twin Peaks... Yeah, okay. So Inland Empire is incredible. I think this was always the more polarizing of his feature films, and even today I think you get people who don't care for it really in the same way they might for Mulholland Drive or Blue Velvet. And it is an unconventional film. It's shot on that really ugly digital video footage that David Lynch was clearly fascinated with at that time. That almost all of his short films in the noughties are shot on. Laura Dern, incredible performance. Possibly one of her best performances, although, I mean, that kind of goes without saying with so much of what Laura Dern's done as well. This feels like a cursed film. It feels like something we'll never be able to solve. Another film that feels like an extension of Mulholland Drive's rejection of Hollywood standards. This sense of, David Lynch fighting alongside a system that was so reluctant to fund many of his works, and it feels like a more frustrated creation because of it. Yeah, and if you felt like Mulholland Drive was a rejection of Hollywood and studio systems, Inland Empire is a complete destruction of it. Yeah, I love Inland Empire. It's terrifying. It's nonsensical. It is so full of digressions that many of the digressions, like rabbits, they're shorts in their own merits. It feels like both an opus and also an amalgamation of that digital short film style he was very much delving into. I'm going to put this in... I'm going to be kind. I'm putting this in S tier. Inland Empire is just always a fascinating thing. And being 3 hours long and such a dense, strange film, you would think 3 hours would be an overwhelming length of time to spend with Inland Empire. And I don't think it is. I think it sort of breezes by with enough mystery, enough Lynchian cool, that you kind of get swept up in it. I love it. Next we have... Casey says, most of Lynch's shots sound like a 3 a.m. random Adult Swim video, best watched after a few beers. Yes, they sort of do. They feel like Adult Swim bumps sometimes, Or what's that series Adult Swim does? On the Air, Off the Air, where it's like a series of surreal shorts that follow a certain theme. They feel like they would be appropriate for that too. I keep meaning to watch. I only really know it from Disco Elysium. Yeah, because Inland Empire gets referenced in that, doesn't it? There's I can't remember. It's like a stat or a status ailment or something like that. I remember Inland Empire making an appearance in there somewhere. Next we have Boat, and I'm going to put this on my rewatch because it's been a very long time since I've seen it. But I remember finding it kind of comforting too. Really visually rough digital film. But yeah, I'm going to have to rewatch it sometime. Next we have, and this is more an interview clip for his website rather than a short film. Where is it? It is... I've accidentally refreshed the tab on my phone as I'm going through the page of his filmography. Okay, so this is working with Marilyn Manson, and I find these website interview segments really intriguing. This one feels dated because of what we now know about Marilyn Manson as an abusive individual. But I think we also have to consider that Marilyn Manson had a creative influence on Lost Highway's 90s industrial rock aesthetic. And Lost Highway is incredible. David Lynch has only kind words here to say about Marilyn Manson because of his distinctive nature as an artist. I think in a way you have to give Lynch credit. He's not wrong in what he says about Marilyn Manson as his memorable artist, because Marilyn Manson became very successful, with this shock rock industrial persona that he crafted. It feels a bit dated now. It feels sleazier now. It always felt sleazy, but it feels sleazier now after the allegations have come forward. This is just I put it in I put it in E tier, not because David Lynch or the interview is bad. I put it in here because I think with what we know now as what we know now about Manson, this working with Marilyn Manson interview snippet from his website just doesn't feel relevant, you know? And next we have Absurda, and I thought it was really cool. This is like a short cutout digital animation of a cinema where disembodied voices discover a murder has taken place and are gradually shown what led up to the murder. And we get scissors that come out from the theatre's screen, and we get footsteps retraced, and it's a very hazy mystery that unfolds that gradually reveals that one of the voices is a murderer out of their own control. And I just think it's a bit crudely animated, but this is a really cool, unique mystery that only lasts about 2 minutes. I really enjoyed Absurda. I'm putting it in B tier. I think it's one of the stronger of Lynch's digital shorts. I think it's very memorable. I could rewatch it again. It very much gets the vibe of Lynch down brilliantly. The intense smoke and fog, the flashes of light, the incredible sound design. Yes, fabulous. More things that happened. I believe this is a collection of extended and deleted scenes from Inland Empire, and I haven't seen it yet, so I'm putting it in my watch list. Cooking Quinoa with David Lynch. I haven't seen this yet either. Into the watch list it goes. Sounds like a real comfort watch, actually. Who doesn't love quinoa? Gosh, it's delicious. Out Yonder watch list. I couldn't find this one. I tried searching for it, and unfortunately couldn't see it. Next we have Gucci by Gucci, and this is a really stylish advert. This feels like Lynch got quite a lot of freedom to do this one. The flashes of light, the classic song choice, the sparks, the golden, luxurious, sultry, kind of sexy nature of the whole thing, the strange dissolves that become distortions. It is gorgeous. This is like a beautiful, beautiful advert. Other perfume adverts are not as memorable as this. You know, if you want beautiful advertising from David Lynch, Gucci by Gucci, with gold dresses and everything, it's just beautiful. I adored it. Yeah, he did. Yeah, Casey says, oh my god, he did so much stuff. He did. There's a lot of adverts, there's a lot of shorts. Look at this. This is still quite a sizable chunk for us to go through. And Lynch talking about Manson seems like Werner Herzog talking about skateboarding. Oh, I don't know that one. Werner Herzog talking about skateboarding. I'm going to check that out when I'm done with this. I love Werner Herzog interview snippets. He's such a fantastic personality. He's just like, he manages to be so harrowing and so amusing in equal measure. So I'm going to check that out when I finish this stream. Next we have Blue Green, which I didn't care for. I think I can see the potential for this. So this is like a mood tone poem, a visual poem that brings the innocence and naivete of childish play to the intimidating aesthetic of industrial factories and landscapes. And I get what the intent is, but the image quality is so poor that it becomes quite hard to discern what's happening here. And I think that's, on one hand, I think that's intentional, because David Lynch was always very keen. You can tell he's very keen on these low-resolution digital video shorts that can be made quick, and the digital distortion that comes along with it becomes like a texture in itself, like an industrial texture. So I can kind of get why he would be wanting to shoot something with such a low resolution, but as a viewer it becomes quite difficult to kind of get anything else out of it, you know. I'm not keen on blue green. I'm going to put it in the E tier. It's not dreadful as such, but it is pretty forgettable, and it is quite hard to watch. Nothing graphic. I just think it's a bit of an eyesore, really. Next we have Ballerina, and this is off on the watch list. I haven't seen this one yet. No, I can't say much else. I haven't seen it. Next we have Book Crawls, and this is another one of his digital animations that feels very long. It's an ambient piece, really. That's the best way to describe it. Very little happens other than a book crawls over the silhouette of a house and then falls over. The house, its front door opens, and we get a glimmer of the electricity buzzing inside, the sparks going off. And I think this is kind of a nice, kind of an eerie little short. Maybe a bit dull, just because it's so uneventful, but I also get that these types of shorts are not meant to be eventful. They are meant to be ambient pieces, like a visual accompaniment of dark ambience. And if you listen to like a lot of dark ambient music anyway, it's so minimalist and so understated, you know. Book Crawls, I think, is a D tier. I think's harsh, because I think actually I watched it for the whole 5 minutes and my eyes were glued to it. I'm putting it in C tier. You don't have to watch it. It's not essential Lynch, but I think if you do see it, you can appreciate what he's going for here. Next, I have Industrial Soundscape, and if I remember this one correctly, this is like an 8-minute audio-visual loop of like a minimalist, dark ambient, industrial sort of understated beat, like a thump. It is pretty dull. It's not my favourite, but I also get that behind it, it's David Lynch's experimentation with animation. It's his exploration with his own sound design and his own musical endeavour. And if you know David Lynch, you know that he has a music career. This feels a bit like a foreshadowing of what's to come. But on its own standard, I think it's not the most interesting thing he's created, so I'll put it in D tier for now. Next we have what is this? This is okay. Twin Peaks Festival Greeting. I haven't seen it yet, so it goes on the watch list, followed by Early Experiments, and followed by Holly Short's Greetings. So some of these, the Festival Greeting and Holly Short's Greeting, it is literally what it says it is. And I think he literally introduced a few film festivals with personalised short film for them. And he's done that later on as well, as a short film he's done called The 3 R's, which we're going to get into eventually. Yeah. It's kind of cool, actually, I think, like when filmmakers manage to do something like that, where they do this sort of personalised, unique film, specifically, exclusively for a film festival. I can't think of many filmmakers who have done that, other than like maybe Peter Cherkassky, who's a great visual editor. If you've ever had chance to see Outer Space, which might be on Mubi, I think you can find it on YouTube as well. Yeah, he has a visual style that is like, it's incredible, sort of intimidating sensory visuals he manages to piece together from found footage and found video footage. Yeah, just gorgeous stuff. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Next, we have a Moby music video shot in the back of the head, and I think this is gorgeous. It's crudely animated by Lynch, but he gets these really beautiful visuals as well, like the back of the head, where it's sort of the exit wound is sort of like becoming this hazy scribble texture. And Moby's music here is beautiful too, like this really sultry, haunting, but quite rhythmic, sort of gentle rock ballad, just instrumental as well. Just gorgeous thing. I really dig this. I remember seeing the video years before, and it stuck with me. And it is really crudely animated. It's not like, even in Lynchian terms, it's not his best animation. But I think the video itself, accompanied by the music, is just fabulous. So I have put it in A tier. In terms of his music video work, for me, it's one of my favourites by him. Next we have Dior, Lady Blue Shanghai, which I haven't seen. This is a proper short film. This is an advert that is a full-on 12 minutes short film. I just haven't gotten around to watching it yet. Next we have a very short film, Dream Number 7. This is about 40 seconds long. I think it was made for a festival that was incorporating like short films less than a minute long. And Dream Number 7, this is one of those cases where David Lynch's short films indicate a creative idea that would come later in his career. So here you have this golden orb that comes from an egg-like shape. And it very much feels reminiscent of the golden orb of, I think, Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks: The Return. And the egg-like shape feels like the arm, that tree-like figure with the head. Also from Twin Peaks: Return. This is a cool little thing. This is a cool little short that indicates that David Lynch holds on to a lot of creative ideas to use at a later point. What Dream Number 7 actually means, I couldn't tell you, but the animation and the visual aesthetic, it is a lovely little short, quite eerie little haunting thing. I'm going to put this in C tier. I think it's worth checking out. Next, I've got a couple here actually I couldn't find. We have One Dream Rush. I couldn't find that one. Ariana Delaware, Lion of Panchari, I think it's called. I couldn't find it, but it's another example of David Lynch supporting an artist under his wing, either directing a music video or producing the music. I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't find the project. And then you have Duran Duran Unstaged. I'm actually interested in this one because I love Duran Duran. I just couldn't find it, sadly. The 3 R's. This is another one of his film festival trailers or introductions, and this was kind of amusing. This guy holding 2 rocks, and then we're told he holds 3 rocks, and then he's beating the floor with a hammer, and it's making these strange noises. I couldn't tell you what it means, but it's a very memorable little short. It's about a minute long. It feels like the guy who is our focus in the film, who has the rocks, who has the hammer, he looks like one of the men who installed the Disc of Sorrow in The Disc of Sorrow is Installed. The 3 R's. I kind of like it. It's a strange little nonsensical digression in Lynch's filmography. Yeah, it's in C tier for me. Next, I have a radio. I couldn't find... No, I could find this. I just didn't see it. It goes on the watch list, as does Interpol's I Touch a Red Button, another music video. I need to see it. Next we have David Lynch's Crazy Clown Time. And this is an amazing music video. This is fucking terrifying stuff. This is David Lynch. Feels like a smaller segment of a bigger piece. This feels like obviously David Lynch gets full creative control on his own work when it comes down to his own song. And this is a terrifying music video. This is like it feels like small town after party from someone's nightmares, you know? All these people who are almost like emulating the image of different subcultures of teen living, like the jock and the punk and stuff like that. But they're all adults, clearly in their 30s and 40s, and maybe like trying their hardest to keep hold of a life that they no longer are able to live. And yeah, you've got David Lynch's strange, high-pitched, half-sung, half-spoken vocals just describing to us the events of women being topless, poured with beer, beer being poured all over their bodies, and men setting themselves on fire, and screams so loud that there's sputtering saliva all over the place. It's like a nightmare of madness. And it's a really good song as well. It's like, when you listen to David Lynch, when you come across enough of his films or listen to enough of his music, a lot of the music he's clearly interested in is the sultry, atmospheric American blues rock, sometimes trip hop as well. And this really captures that sleazy, scuzzy feeling of like, I don't know, like if Chris Isaac had gotten bleary drunk and is still struggling to play through certain songs, It is just a fabulous video, Crazy Clown Time. It is the stuff of nightmares. I am putting it in A tier. This feels like David Lynch becoming like, it feels like if he had more freedom to make what he wanted to make, I wouldn't have been surprised if he had another feature film in him after Crazy Clown Time. So next we have a couple I haven't managed to see. Memory film, so I'll put it in my watch list. And Idem Paris. I've not seen this one either, sorry. But next one we have 9 Inch Nails, Came Back Haunted. This is another music video. 9 Inch Nails, David Lynch, go way back to Lost Highway. And here, Came Back Haunted has this gorgeous sort of minimalist, almost epileptic music video, which shifts between visual collage and strobe lighting and stop motion and live action of Trent Reznor's face spitting vocals towards us. And it's just an incredibly intimidating experience. The music is really fucking groovy. The video just looks fabulous. It's not even like the video's doing anything all that extravagant. It feels like a rhythmic digital animated short that Trent Reznor has managed to inject himself into. I think this is one of the best of Lynch's animated shorts, to be honest. 9 Inch Nails, Came Back Haunted, needs to be watched. As long as you are okay with strobe lighting. Anyone sensitive to that sort of thing should skip it. Casey says, like watching old heroin punks going to a show of some washed up 80s punk band and watching them drink vodka straight out of the bottle. Yeah, Crazy Clown Time is really very much like that. It feels like an after party that should have ended long before, and everything has just become hectic, meandering, hedonistic Nightmare. Next we have this is Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces. This is wonderful. This is the additional um extended and deleted scenes from like Fire Walk with Me in the TV series, I think, as well. This came as a special feature on the Criterion Blu-ray for Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. And it's about 90 minutes. It's almost like a film in itself. And you'd think you'd get some additional context or answers or solutions to what you get with Fire Walk with Me. And no, you don't. This is another case of more answers. Less answers, more questions. But it's a fascinating delving into a further rabbit hole. The Missing Pieces, A tier. I mean, it sort of becomes essential to pair it with Fire Walk with Me every time you watch it, you know? Next we have Ergo Robots, and I haven't seen this. I know it's like an art installation that's been filmed. I just haven't gotten around to seeing it, sadly. And then we've got Twin Peaks Return. Yes, peak television. How do you match Twin Peaks? How do you return with another season of Twin Peaks? By bringing us something completely different. Like, I remember watching this for the first time thinking, I cannot wait to go back to Twin Peaks and to get familiar with the characters and how things have changed. And Twin Peaks does not give you that. There is not going to be that sense of closure here. We are spending most of our time with Coop in different forms as he gradually, slowly is lured back to the confines of Twin Peaks. We get some glimmers of how Twin Peaks has changed, of the aftermath of season 2, but also there's another case of this is another case of there being more questions and answers. Coop becomes Dougie. We get a whole storyline for episode after episode of Dougie and his love of coffee, and it's amazing. It is so funny and goofy and screwy, and just it's almost like Lynch is fucking with us big time, in a sense of he knows we are desperate to see them return to Twin Peaks. And there's great musical performances. This show has literal concert footage at the Roadhouse, the Bang Bang Roadhouse, I think it's called. You get Chromatics. You get Nine Inch Nails. I can't remember who else plays. Not off the top of my head anyway. And then you get episode 8. Episode 8 of Twin Peaks: The Return could possibly be the most experimental piece of television of all time. The way it starts as like a Twin Peaks mystery and then delves into atomic bombing testing, and then takes us inside of the explosion and dismantles itself before bringing us into, I think, the 1950s. God, it's incredible stuff. You've never seen television like Twin Peaks Return, and it is like the nightmarish treat you get after how mixed of a bag Twin Peaks Season 2 can be. This is amazing. This is, I think, depending on how you view it, this is David Lynch's final feature film, because I know David Lynch himself considers it an 18-hour film. And really, in a lot of ways, it is. Twin Peaks Return, S tier. I have no bad words for it. It's immaculate shit. It is nightmarish. It goes to more terrifying lengths than the original series does in some ways. It is darker. It is nastier. It is funny. It is really charming. It is haunting in all these ways that David Lynch only knows how, you know. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. What else do we have next? We have What Did Jack Do? This is on my watch list. I need to see it. I almost feel like I have no excuse for missing this one out. It's been on Netflix now for a while, but I just haven't seen it. And Ted, it's on the watch list. Fire Posar on the watch list. Next, we have The Story of a Small Bug. And The Story of a Small Bug is one of these digital shorts that starts a bit like a video diary. And David Lynch is telling us about this bug he admires. The tenacity of a bug that falls down and keeps trying to get back up this hill. And yeah, what is... Oh, comments. Okay, before I continue with the story of the bug, let me get through some of your comments. Casey says, one day I'll check out the new Twin Peaks seasons. I'm just worried I won't love it as much as season 1 of Fire Walk with Me. Yeah, maybe. It's different tonally, The Return. It goes very ominous very early on. It's quite horrifying, actually. And it's very much like bringing a lot of the strange, inexplicable ideas from these digital shorts we're talking about onto mainstream television. And it's almost like, I'm not sure how he managed to get it approved or greenlit, because it is so weird in ways that Twin Peaks, the original series, isn't. But it is also Twin Peaks. We do get to see the characters we love eventually. Some of them are... they're not doing great, and then some of them are... they're kind of the same old in the ways that we love. I loved seeing Andy again. I love Andy from Twin Peaks. He's one of my favourites. Another comment saying, so excited to see you live. Thank you. I hope you're enjoying the time that we're spending here. If you've joined in late, that's okay. This stream is going to stay on the channel, so I hope that it might be worth watching at a later point too if you miss anything out. Yeah, Casey saying, well, shit, you describe it like that, I'm checking it out immediately. Thank you. I hope so. I hope you do enjoy Twin Peaks The Return. Let me know what you think about it. I'm on Letterboxd very actively. You can find my Letterboxd in the description, or literally just leave like a comment on a community post. I'll probably read it. Let me know what you think about Twin Peaks The Return. So yes, we're on to now The Story of the Small Bug, and this is the one. It starts out like a video diary. David Lynch admires the tenacity of this bug that keeps falling from a hill and climbs its way back up. And then it cuts to what he's described. But it's clearly not a bug. It's a lizard, like a gecko or something. And it keeps falling and kind of crawling and falling. And then the sound design is really quite unsettling. It's almost like... what David Lynch admired in his creatures, tenacity, becomes almost like it feels hopeless. It feels nightmarish and eerie. It feels like, oh shit, this thing's not going to get to the top of this hill. It feels kind of unnerving, quietly so, but yeah. Like this thing is going to be stuck in this loop of falling and climbing, kind of Sisyphean, I'm putting this in B tier because it's I really enjoyed it. It's not A tier, it's not, but I don't think it's below either. I think this is a good little short film. The Adventures of Alan R. next. This one is strange. This one I'm not the biggest fan of. It's almost like a still image that has an animated mouth. And it's a mask telling its mother that it's not going fishing. So it's almost like the non-adventure of Alan R. It's kind of funny in that Lynchian way of nonsensical humour, of tapping into something... unnerving without being able to articulate what exactly. But it's also not the most memorable thing. It is literally just a still image. It's very minimalist in its animation. I'll put it in D tier. It's not dreadful. It's for a minute long. It's kind of an interesting curiosity. Next we have... How was your day, honey? I don't like this. This I don't know what David Lynch was thinking. This is like a short loop stretched over for a minute of just some objects floating about with stock sound effects, and that's it. I'm not really sure what the point was. It feels like something from 2001, and it feels like a thrown away segment of Dumbland, but without any of the humor, without any of the mystique and allure. I don't know, it just feels like a waste of a minute. And I feel harsh saying that about David Lynch, because I know there would be a creative intent. There would be a creative intent here, but I just don't care for this one. Sorry, David. I just don't. The Spider and the Bee. I'm putting this on the watch list. So next we have Today's Number Is. And this is a series of videos. This is like a video blog of sorts, really. This is one of his series that he did on his channel. And I don't think he's done for a while now, where he basically just... Some of these are less than a minute long. He basically did a number reading each day. Sort of like an eccentric Sesame Street, I suppose. Where he just puts numbers in a jar, pulls a number out, tells us the number of the day, and that's it. And there's something quite endearing and earnest and charming about that. Just a gentle slight mystery of, well, what number will we get today? I can't dislike Today's Number Is. It's not the most interesting series he's done. It's kind of neat though. I'm putting it in C tier. You might have seen a couple of the episodes, and you kind of can't help but watch. It's a very strange series. Next we have What Is David Working On Today? This is lovely. This is a series that, again, going back to David Lynch as a handyman, as a craftsperson, as a tinkerer. What Is David Working On Today is a series he did on YouTube where he shows us the things he's recently made. And sometimes they're sculptures, sometimes they're lamps, sometimes they're like toys, and sometimes they're like things he's made for other people, like gifts. The one I thought was really sweet was one he made a red barn for his daughter during the COVID lockdowns, when his daughter had to start teaching from home, and so he made a red barn. So he, his daughter, and the students had a display for a farm. And this is just a really sweet series. It shows that David Lynch is someone who's just very down to earth, very gentle in demeanour, someone who's very interested and enthusiastic and curious and kind in just showing the things that he enjoys making. He is just a sweet-natured hobbyist. I'm putting this in A tier. These are really lovely videos. If you are someone who likes to make comfort watch playlists on YouTube, or enjoys watching things to fall asleep to, What Is David Working On Today is a really good series for that, as long as you don't mind the sound of the drill at the introduction. Yeah, fabulous, wonderful little series. Next we have Donovan, I Am the Shaman. This is a music video for Donovan. He's done some really great soft rock music. And I really enjoyed this song. The music video itself feels a bit like DIY, homemade, like kind of nothing to write home about, but David Lynch directed it, as well as contributed and he recorded it and contributed to the audio engineering of it. And the song itself just sounds so smooth, so just luscious and alluring and comforting. and quite spiritual as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Donovan's into the whole transcendental meditation thing David Lynch is into. This is wonderful. As a song, as a music video, it's kind of endearing. It's not the most Lynchian creation, but it's a really lovely music video still. I'm putting it in B tier. Next we have Weather Report. S tier, instant S tier. This is a wonderful series David used to do. I think it's sad I don't think he does it anymore. Where he describes the weather in LA and then the temperature. And it's quite okay. Yeah, nice to know it's comfy there, or it's raining there, or whatever. And it kind of extends this intimate, personable nature that David Lynch has. And then he accompanies this weather and temperature with some very profound, thoughtful, kind and encouraging gestures about how we should go about our own day. How about if it's cloudy, the clouds will part eventually, and eventually we'll be reunited with the sun again. These are really beautiful, just beautiful retellings of the weather that kind of verges on the philosophical in a way you kind of don't expect. It's gorgeous and profound. And yeah, Weather Report, if you need comfort watches, these are beautiful little short videos that I think it's a shame he doesn't do anymore. Next we have Donovan, Give Me Some of That. I haven't seen this, but if it's anything like I Am the Shaman, I'll probably enjoy it. Next we have Christabel and David Lynch. This one is... So these are really recent, actually. Sublime, Eternal Love. Yeah, these are really recent. This is his most recent musical project with singer Christabel. And she's got a gorgeous singing voice. And the music has this hazy, ethereal, dreamy quality in that way that some of the best David Lynch musical projects do. She's sort of like... a Julie Cruz comparison wouldn't be out of place. I think my only gripe is, I think production-wise, I wish her voice had more reverb on it and was maybe a little lower in the mix, because sometimes her voice can come out quite sharp. But yeah, this are not... Sorry, spitting out my words now. I'm getting towards the end of the stream and I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah, this is a lovely little DIY musical project that's been going on. I'm going to place it in B tier. Yeah, lovely song. Really haunting, gorgeous, luscious thing. Next, what else have I got next? We'll Deliver 'em. Okay, so this is part of the recent series of shorts David Lynch has been doing to advertise the album he's produced with Christabel. But also these are shorts that work as their own strange little skits. So David Lynch has clearly found public domain films that he can overdub with his own voice. And they're a bit silly, and they're a bit funny, and they're a bit... Yeah, they're absurdist. Will Deliver 'em wasn't my favourite one. I think some of the other two were funnier. This one feels more like an advert of these two train engineers delivering a stack of albums towards any listener who wants them. Yeah, it's okay. It's an earnest little short advertising a project he's passionate about. I can't hate it, you know. Next we have... What's this one called? This is a Christabel and David Lynch music video. The Answers to the Questions. I like this. This is a good song. This, again, I think it could benefit with a little more reverb on the vocals. Maybe bringing the voice down a little bit in the sound mix. But yeah, this is... good, hazy, ethereal, dreamy, electronic dream pop from David Lynch and Christabel. Her voice, again, gorgeous. The music video, really quite... What do you call it, a music video? I'm not sure. But it brings that intrigue that Lynch has always had for minimalist digital animation, you know? Yeah, B tier. Your Christabel project, it's really good. We're getting there. We're getting towards the end. Next we've got The Moon's Glow. And this was funny. This is another advert for the Christabel album. But this is funny. This is David Lynch being funny off the cuff. Saying stuff like, you stole my pencil. And it's just... And there's a dead mule who he wants to eat an apple. Yeah, this is funny. This is silly funny. This feels like a skit. He's directing a strange short made from found public domain cinematic footage. I sort of suspect it's maybe due to not having loads of money for advertising budget. But also, David Lynch gets full creative control when under these restrictions. So I'm putting that in B tier because I thought this one was really funny. And last one, what was this one called? This is another Christabel advert. Or trailer, however you might call it. Will there be anything else? Okay, so this one was okay. This one, a man sits in a cafe, a diner. He rejects the notion of someone playing music on the jukebox. No one's got the right kind of music for him. It's amusing, but it feels kind of sad as well because eventually the shopkeeper is like, don't tell people to stop playing music. You know, don't tell people to stop playing the music. I make money from that dime, from that singular dime. That's my living. It's funny. It's funny and kind of sweetly sad. I enjoyed this one too. I'll put this in C tier because it's not my favourite of these Christabel album advertisements that he's done, but I kind of dig a short film made from found footage and found reclaimed public domain footage elsewhere. I kind of dig that sort of genre of short film or film altogether. Oh my goodness, I think that's all of it. That's everything, right? Oh my gosh. Oh, that's it. We're done. Nice. Yeah, this is cool. I'll catch up with some comments. I'll definitely watch live later on today, so sad I missed a lot of it. Oh, that's okay. I don't know how long I've been going for. It feels like maybe 2 hours now. Yeah, so I get this is long. I appreciate not everyone's had chance or will have chance to watch it as we're live, but that's okay. Casey says, I loved that series, something about Lynch talking about the weather was enchanting. Yes, the weather report, it's a comfort, isn't it? It's like, I even though his weather status isn't relevant to most of us, not all of us live in LA, and there's something just really, really profound and thoughtful about the whole thing. The way he speaks, his statements about the weather becoming these sort of relatable excursions, these exclamations. It's a beautiful little series. Yes, when he brought out the urinal and what David was working on series, it was so interesting because I had genuinely never seen anyone make a urinal. Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, Flip. Goodness. Thank you for watching. Anyway, I feel like now I need to have a bit of a mental break because you might have noticed I was tripping over my words quite a bit. Yeah, I don't know what else I have to say. I'm trying to figure out. Ooh, have I missed anything? Anything that I can wrap up with? And I feel like I've maybe covered. Sometimes, I don't know. I suppose I'm just lingering now, aren't I? So thank you, everyone who's watched me just ramble on about David Lynch for the past 2 hours. I'm going to wrap this up now. Thank you for everyone who's commented. I don't know how eventful this stream has been, how interesting it's been, but I'm really glad that people have managed to make it, to dip in and out, have commented on some of their favourites. Yeah, let me know if you want me to do more streams like this in the future. I'm more than happy to. I'm quite interested in doing more live streams of tier ranking videos, focusing on filmographies or one of the ones I've been interested in doing, and I might do it for another milestone, is the IMDb top 250 list. But that's a stream for another day. Yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up now.